All right. Hello, good morning, everyone. Welcome to Power Up Your Procurement webinar. It's great to have you here with us. My name is Cynthia Ng, and I will be your MC and moderator for today. Thank you so much for joining us this morning. I hope everyone's had their breakfast and coffee fix. More importantly, we'd like to get everyone as comfortable as possible and enjoy what we have in store for you for the next 2 hours. Now, before we get started, allow me to go through some housekeeping matters and the flow of the entire event. We will be featuring 2 speakers later on, and they will each present for 30 minutes, followed by a fireside chat right after. We would also encourage you to participate in this webinar. So during all the sessions, you can ask questions. Just post them in the chat box on the side of your screen, and we'll get to them during the Q&A session after the fireside chat. Now, this is a live webinar, and I understand we are also streaming via LinkedIn and I think Facebook as well. We will be recording all the sessions, and the video of this recording, should you want to view it again, will be made available after the event on Supplycart's Facebook page. All right, ladies and gentlemen, as you know, the webinar today is titled Powering Up Procurement in Your Organization. We know that the role of procurement has evolved so much over the years. And I think all of you here would agree that one of the top KPIs, if not the KPI for procurement, generally has always been about cost savings. Am I right? But things have changed a lot over the years. Procurement can actually play very strategic roles in so many areas within an organization. For instance, those that we are more familiar with, contract management and compliance, tracking supplier performance, and procurement can actually be very instrumental in development of new product, telling you what works and what doesn't. And if you have the right tools, you can even track sustainability impact via procurement. But of course, you can't do that by extracting data from an Excel sheet. So to sum it up, procurement goes beyond just purchasing supplies needed to run your organization's day-to-day operations. And so for this webinar, we want to share and discuss some of the challenges facing procurement and how to address those challenges with tools available, such as ERP and cloud solutions that I believe can help you, your organization, at every stage of your business. So without further ado, I would like to welcome our first speaker, Dr. Alicia Lu. She is a senior lecturer at Tunku Abdul Rahman University College to talk about transforming procurement with ERP. A quick background on Dr. Alicia. She is an expert in supply chain operations and management, sourcing and purchasing, and IT applications. Dr. Alicia has extensive knowledge on several logistics systems such as Iris, Arena, Supply Chain Guru, and the most commonly used system, ERP. Now, apart from her academic qualification, Dr. Alicia is also a member of several professional bodies, namely Malaysia Board of Technologists, the Chartered Institute of Logistics and Transport, as well as the Society of Logisticians Malaysia. So without further ado, Dr. Alicia, I'll hand this over to you right now.
Thank you, Cynthia, for the introduction. A very good morning to everyone here today. Let me start with my short introduction, or I would say that, a discussion on, transforming your procurement with ERP system. Okay, so before we actually start, the whole topic we have today is on procurement. But the thing is that when it comes to procurement, a lot of companies, a lot of organizations, they tend to use this term procurement or purchasing interchangeably. And a lot of companies, a lot of firms, a lot of organizations, they actually have this idea that procurement is similar to purchasing, and purchasing is procurement. But if you look at the whole process, all right, purchasing and procurement, they actually have a very huge difference in terms of their function. So in a way, it is actually 2 separate functions in an organization. Okay, so if you look at the slides, all right, when it comes to procurement, All right, procurement is actually a strategic process that focuses on creating value to the organization. So it actually involves processes like, identifying your suppliers, identifying your needs, okay, selecting the right suppliers that share the same value or same objective, okay, with your organization. And on top of that, also, it involves acquiring goods or services for your organization. So if you look at the process flow of a typical procurement process, it starts with identifying needs, where it is not just about okay, my production department, they need let's say production department, okay, we have an order and we need to manufacture, let's say a pencil. All right, so when it comes to the pencil, the procurement team will need to procure or purchase the plastics, the lead, the packaging materials and things like that. So when it comes to procurement, it is not as simple as, okay, there's a request and I put in the purchase, that's it. No, it's about what is required by, what is demanded by the society, what is demanded by the customer, okay, what are the current trend when it comes to a particular material. All right, on top of that, with that requirement in place, or with that needs identified, okay, the procurement team will actually source for suitable suppliers or vendors. It's not just about, okay, you're selling and I'm buying. No, all right, we're talking about suppliers or vendors that actually share the same value, the same objective with the organization. For instance, if my company emphasize on, let's say, quality, I will look for suppliers that emphasize on quality as well, rather than, the suppliers that, focuses on price or delivery or I don't know, quantity discounts and things like that. So after identifying all these potential suppliers, we will then, okay, go into pre-qualifying the suppliers. So this is where we do the matching. All right, for instance, like, does what I require, my company or my organization require, my requirements, it's being met by the suppliers or not. So this is where we talk about pre-qualifying the supplier. Okay, then after identifying which suppliers are available and which supplier is suitable, we will then issue a request for quotation. So after issuing the RFQ, we will say that, when it comes to the procurement team, they will analyze and also evaluate the quotes that they receive. And then they go into the process of negotiation or bargaining to look for the best outcome, to actually get the best value out of that whole process. All right. And then, okay, we'll place an order. All right. After that, we'll receive the order and then we'll do the QC, QA check. Okay. And then we look into fulfilling the payment terms. All right. And then we look into establishing a supplier relationship. So if you look at the whole procurement process, it is more of a strategic process where we talk about strategic, we talk about long-term planning, we talk about building a relationship, we talk about establishing a partnership in a way. Whereas when it comes to purchasing, it's more of a subset or a sub-function of procurement. Okay, where it actually emphasizes on a transactional or day-to-day processes. Like, I have a request from a particular department, then I put in my purchase requisition based on whatever that is required by that particular department. Okay, and then I get my RFQ from my suppliers. Okay, I evaluate if the price is suitable, if the price is okay, then I put in my purchase order. Then I manage the product receiving and QC check, and then I proceed to payment. So if you look at the whole process, procurement, it's more on the process that emphasizes on value adding to the organization, whereas purchasing is more like a bargain hunter. I'm emphasizing on the cost, I'm emphasizing on the cost and also the price of the product at the end of the day. So when it comes to a typical organization, they should actually widen up their whole coverage of their whole purchasing system, not just to emphasize on the day-to-day operation, but the whole procurement process itself, right? Moving on. So in order to actually achieve a seamless procurement process, companies or firms will actually need to consider to implement this cross-functional team approach, or we call it the CFT. All right. So usually when we talk about cross-functional team, companies or organizations will feel that, okay, I have a team of qualified and also a world-class procurer or purchaser in my purchasing team or my procurement team. So I think it will be sufficient. But if you look at that point, You are just looking at the purchasing or the procurement processes. They are experts when it comes to negotiation. They are experts when it comes to evaluating the quotes and things like that. Okay, so in order to have a seamless flow or a seamless procurement, it is actually good to involve other experts or other department as well. For instance, you can involve your distribution or your warehouse team so that they can actually advise you, okay, what are the available space that we have? What will be the inventory turnover be like? What will be, the inventory holding cost will be like? So with that, you will make a well-informed decision when you're buying a product or buying a material. Okay, on top of that, you can actually involve your production or operation team as well, because why? They are more exposed, or they are more familiar when it comes to the production process. For instance, okay, my machine can only, let's say like I'm producing a plastic, so a certain form of a degree of temperature that my machine can take. Okay, so if let's say I were to buy a different quality or a material that my machine cannot support, it will end up being a waste to the organization. It's good to also include your sales and marketing team, because they can actually advise you, because sales and marketing team are always the frontliner. They are the one that is in contact with the customers, and they know the demand and what the customer needs. So when you involve sales and marketing team, you can also actually get a better understanding on the needs and trends of the product that you are purchasing, or you're going to purchase or procure in a way. All right. So on top of that, it is good to involve your R&D team and also your QC QA, so that you can actually have better exposure or more feedback on the products that you're buying, or the previous batch of materials that I buy or I purchase, okay, may end up having more defect. There's more defect in the product. So with that, you can improve in terms of the procurement or the product that you're acquiring, right? Okay, so let's talk about the evolution of procurement. So when it comes to the procurement, or when it comes to purchasing, okay, like I've mentioned just now, a lot of companies, a lot of firms, they feel that, purchasing, procurement is actually the same thing. But I've just mentioned that, actually it's two different functions. So how does this procurement actually form? All right, so back in the 70s or 80s, all right, this is where we first talk about purchasing. All right, so when it comes to that point of time during the 70s and 80s, a lot of firms, a lot of companies, they will just purchase, or they will just buy based on what it is required, okay, based on my company's sales, based on my production. Okay, so when it comes to during this time, okay, a lot of companies, a lot of organizations, they are like bargain hunters. They don't actually go for value adding activities. They don't actually look into areas of developing, supplier relationship. Okay, they don't actually look into areas of, possibly forming a partnership that we talk about long-term purchasing, okay, long-term buying, okay, or any form of value adding to the whole supply chain, or to the company or the organization itself. So during this time, during the purchasing era, okay, so what companies or firms do is that they will actually buy in bulk, they buy in big quantity in order to achieve quantity discount. And during this era, all right, what will be the typical manufacturing trend? Okay, company will tend to go for mass production. So what they do is that they don't really emphasize on what is demanded by the customer, what is needed by the customer. They just produce, okay, in order to minimize the cost. So with that with that manufacturing style, this is where the purchasing come into place. So the thing is that when it comes to this purchasing era, or when company implement this purchasing system, okay, or practice or function, you call it, okay, they don't really look at what is needed. They don't really look at what is required. They just purchase in order to achieve cost saving. So for instance, okay, I may have a customer demand of, let's say, just 100 units of this pencil. In order to achieve quantity discount from my supplier tell me, hey, Alicia, look, if you want to get a cheaper price, okay, for your plastic, for your material, okay, I suggest you buy 300 units. With 300 units, I can probably charge you at 50 cents rather than 80 cents. Okay, so without considering what the demand is, I will then look at, oh, I'm able to achieve 30 cents cost saving. So might as well, I just buy the 300 units. Okay, so what will happen if company were to continue, practicing this method or this strategy, you will end up losing more. Because why? Yes, I'm able to save 30 cents when it comes to my material costs, but what about your storage costs? What about your inventory holding costs? What about, all the costs incurred, for example, insurance, for example, the risk involved. So in a way, it doesn't look at the big picture. You are just looking at a silo department where I'm just thinking about purchasing. Okay, I'm able to achieve cost saving. So with that, my company will possibly profit more because of the cost saving. So yeah, I will just buy it. So this is what we call the silo mentality. They will just look at their particular department, their particular function. And same thing goes for other departments. All right. So the thing is, when it comes to purchasing department will purchase the material, and then it will be produced or manufactured by the production department. So with that amount of raw material, if production department want to, in a way, look efficient, okay, or they want to increase their productivity, they will just produce whatever materials that are supplied to them without considering, what is our demanded quantity, what is our sales quantity, all right? They will just produce everything that they have so that they will look efficient, they will look productive, okay? And then, again, the silo mentality will come in. I don't care about, how much you're selling. So you have the material for me, I will just produce and produce and produce and produce. Okay, and then at the end of the day, all these materials that you're not able to sell, it will all stuck in your warehouse, in your inventory. And this is where all the losses will be in. Because why? If you're dealing with, let's say, technology product, technology will go obsolete and then it will not be sellable. If you're dealing with perishable product, all right, if things will, your product or your material or your finished goods will expire and then it will go to waste. Or if you're dealing with material that have a certain shelf life, all right, so again it will go to waste. So this is the whole concept of purchasing during the 70s and the 80s, where we are just looking at the price, we are just looking for the best bargain. Okay, and then during the 90s, purchasing function actually evolved and it expand into material management, where this purchasing function will now is actually adopted as a supportive role, meaning to say that rather than looking at my own department, rather than looking at just purchasing and cost saving, I look into areas where I consider, okay, is my warehouse able to actually cater to all these products that I'm going to purchase, all right? And then we look into requirements and also quality, okay? Rather than looking at the price, the cost of the product, the price of the material, okay? I look into other areas such as quality. Because why? Because of empowerment. People tend to look into products that can last longer rather than being cheap. Okay, it can actually last longer. So we look into quality. So this is where it expands into material management, where we look at quality requirement. We look at fulfillment. We talk about if my action or the amount of product that I purchase are able to support other department, will it actually achieve cost saving throughout the entire supply chain? Okay, so and also during this material management era, it's where all this strategy like just in time, all this strategy like make to order come in place. Okay, because why? It is based on the needs and requirements of the customer. Okay, and then comes the new millennium in the year 2000, okay, where firms, companies, organization, they prefer to have this end-to-end process where procure to pay actually evolve. All right, so when it comes to this procure to pay strategy or this procure to pay system, if you can say, okay, it is viewed as a valuable contribution to achieve the company objective. Because why? We are not only looking at one particular function, we are not only looking at one particular department, we are looking at the whole process flow, we are looking at the whole supply chain, okay, where we talk about sourcing for the right material, all right, negotiate for the best price, all right, evaluate the best quotes, and then purchasing the material. All right, during the purchasing of the material, okay, you also talk about able to actually we talk about the policies, okay, we talk about your payment terms, okay, we talk about delivery, whether you want it to be in a full delivery, you want it to be partial delivery, okay, until the end of the process where you actually pay your suppliers. So if you see, when it comes to a P2P process, P2P, procure to pay, it is an end-to-end process where you cover from the beginning of the supply chain, okay, procuring or sourcing for the material until paying your suppliers. So it is an end-to-end process. And this approach, it's actually more agile to fulfill the customer's demand. Okay, on top of that, right, procure to pay compared to material management and purchasing, it is more coordinated and integrated because why? You involve other departments, you consider other departments' processes, okay, and then you are able to track and trace each process. So when it comes to this procure to pay, okay, like I said, it actually helps the company, the organization to have a more holistic view for the whole procurement process, because I'm able to identify, okay, what is my current supply list, okay. On top of that, I am able to actually analyze what will be my spend analysis. All right, with this spend analysis, I'm able to actually reduce all the maverick spending, okay, spending that doesn't add value to an organization. So this is how it evolved from the purchasing, a small tiny bit in the a small tiny function in an organization, to an end-to-end process. All right, and then moving on. All right, so the whole idea, right, like I've mentioned just now, when it comes to this procure to pay, okay, how does it fit, or procurement, how does it fit into an ERP system? How do we actually create this cross-functional team? Okay, so all these processes, all these functions can, or is actually classified or coordinated or integrated into this enterprise resource planning ERP system. So what is an ERP system actually? So ERP system is actually an umbrella system that tie a variety of specialized system together. So when it comes to this ERP function or ERP system, it includes functions like purchasing, inventory, sales, accounting, finance, okay, your project management, all right, your customer relationship management, your human resource management, your supplier relationship management. So all these functions are all tied up under this umbrella system. Okay, and when it comes to this ERP system, okay, it is actually an automated information system that uses centralized and shared database. So what does it mean? It means that if, let's say, I'm in the purchasing department, okay, I'm in the procurement department, my job is to get suppliers to bid for my to submit their quotation, okay, or to submit their quotation to for me to purchase a material. All right, so during the whole RFQ process, okay, other departments are able to view where is Alicia, what is the current status of this material that we need. Okay, and on top of that, all right, if let's say after I purchase the material, after I've actually set a delivery date with my supplier, all right, my warehouse department, my inventory department, or my production department, they are able to go into the system and view when will be the expected delivery date for that particular material. So with that, they are able to actually have a more clear or a more transparent scheduling or accurate scheduling system, because why? With the date in place, I'm able to plan my production better. I'm able to plan my warehouse better. Okay, I'm able to store the product faster. Okay, so how is it? Like, how does it turn out this way? Okay, for instance, I'll give you the whole process flow. Okay, so say for instance, okay, Alicia is in the purchasing department. So Alicia put in an order of, let's say, 100 units of paper cardboard cartons. All right, so after that, when it comes to my production planner, they are able to plan when is this product coming in, when should I start planning my production, so that when the carton arrives, I am able to use the carton directly without actually storing it into my warehouse. Because why? If let's say product come in, let's say your materials come in, your materials arrive in your receiving dock. If I don't need it yet, I need to put it away in my storage. So if that happen, all right, you will have a few touches. And when it comes to all these touches, it actually doesn't add value to the organization, but it actually costs more because why? The more handling happens in a supply chain, the higher the risk, the higher the cost. Okay, for instance, if I bring in the material without my production department needing it, the product will end up being in the storage. So when product is in the storage, all right, my holding cost increase. Okay, my inventory cost increase, my risk increases. Okay, and then there will be redundant processes as well, because what? From my receiving dock, I transfer it to my storage. It doesn't add value. In fact, it will actually cause damages to the product. And then when I need the material, I will need to retrieve it from my storage into my production line. So again, more touches, more damages, all right, higher risk, higher costs. Okay, so with any ERP system, I'm able to track, I'm able to get the expected delivery date from the system, because what? This system, like I said, is centralized. So everybody are able to connect to the system and retrieve, okay, and extract the information that they need. So same thing goes for sales department. Sales department will bring sales back, and then they just need to key in the sales, all right, what am I selling into the system? And with that, the procurement department will be prompt, okay, this is the new sales that we get, all right, and then start to plan for your material, because why? We do not have sufficient material for this material A, material B, and we still have material C, for example. So with that, purchaser, procurer, they are able to plan better, all right, production are able to plan better. So if you see, all this actually allows the company to be integrated as one. All right, so the next question is, I've actually talked about procurement, I talked about P2P, and then I talked about ERP being an umbrella system that tie all the organization, all the systems or all the functions together. But how procurement and P2P fit into the ERP system? Okay, so when it comes to procurement, P2P and ERP, all right, so again, back to the basic, ERP is like the umbrella system. So in ERP system, there will be a procurement or purchasing modules. And this purchasing and procurement module will cover the basic procurement processes. For instance, like, you deal with streamlining your purchases, all right, you create purchase order, okay, you can actually put in a request for quotation, okay, you can actually have the function of analyzing the quotations, and then from there, reject which suppliers that doesn't meet your requirement, okay, and then approve which supplier that is suitable and matches your requirement into your supply list, okay, and then you have your PO authorization, okay. So in a way, when it comes to this ERP function or ERP module, it covers major phases of these P2P processes, okay. For example, procurement management, order management, which is all in P2P. Okay, so how does this P2P actually come in place and complement the whole procurement system? Okay, so this P2P is actually an additional system or an additional function that allow, okay, procurement to have a better coverage. So in a sense that, if you look at it, okay, this P2P process, like I said, procurement function, it will probably starts with a request for quotation, okay, analyzing analyzing your suppliers, okay. But P2P may have the function like, spend analysis. I'm able to capture what is all this maverick spending that I'm spending extra on, okay. So how does all these three functions fit together? Let me give you a more a realistic example. Okay, so if you look at ERP, procurement system, okay, or the procurement function, procurement module under ERP, and then P2P, okay, it is like ERP is like telecom, okay, it provides you with the internet facilities, okay, it gives you all this internet connection, okay, provide you with the facilities, okay. Procurement is like your Wi-Fi. Okay, so under ERP or with telecom, you will get your Wi-Fi. So in a way, when it comes to Wi-Fi, you are able to connect everywhere. You're able to connect easily, and the accessibility is there. And then come procure to pay, P2P. So what is this P2P? P2P is like your booster for your Wi-Fi. So in a way, with this P2P, okay, the booster, all right, you will have a stronger connection. The connection is strengthened, and on top of that, you are able to actually widen the coverage of your Wi-Fi connection. So this is the whole idea of ERP, procurement, and procure to pay. And all these functions actually complements each other. So usually when it comes to this P2P process, okay, it is actually an integrated suite, okay, that are required to automate the entire process. So it's actually complement and gives the whole system an end-to-end coverage. All right, moving on. All right, so before firms and organizations actually consider, okay, to implement ERP, what are the factors that firms, organizations, companies need to consider? So when it comes to this ERP implementation or ERP considering to actually implement this ERP system, firms will first need to identify if they would need a single integrator system or best of breed. So what is a single integrator? Single integrator is actually an integrated ERP system in a single software application. So this single integrator usually used across multiple departments, okay, throughout the whole organization. So with this single integrator ERP system, okay, you will have your HR function, you will have your finance function, you will have your accounting function, you will have your purchasing, you will have your production, you will have your CRM, SRM, and all this, it's all integrated in one system. Okay, and usually when it comes to single integrator, it allows you to have a greater visibility, okay, because why? It is integrated. And when it comes to single integrator, it allows companies or firms to actually customize the modules based on their requirement. What about best of breed? Okay, best of breed is where you bring multiple software that are available in the market, okay, and then you bring them together, put them together, tie them up together to create this ultimate business process system. So in a way, okay, when it comes to best of breed, you are actually creating the dream team. Okay, for instance, like, I get the best CRM software, okay, system in the market, and then I get the best MRP, I get the best warehouse management, and then I put it and integrate it together in a single system. So this is the difference between single integrator and best of breed. Okay, to give you a clearer example, single integrator is like, when you go shopping, okay, I will walk into, let's say, Uniqlo, okay, I get my dress, I get my blouse, I get my pants, I get my jacket, I get my handbag, I get my shoe, everything from one store. So it is all packaged together for you. Okay, best of breed is where, I go to different shop to get different product and put it in together. So this is the difference between single integrator and best of breed. So before you actually decide what to get, you need to decide, should I get a single integrator or should I get a best of breed? Okay, and on top of that, all right, companies, firms, organizations will also need to decide whether they need an on-premise server or cloud server. So what is the difference again? So by the name itself, it's very straightforward. On-premise server is where you actually have that system, that software, okay, installed locally on the business computers and server. So meaning to say that this server will be in your company, will be in your organization. All right. And when it comes to this on-premise server, all right, because companies, firms will need to consider, all right, the cost in terms of having this server in your company itself, all right, the license, okay, the maintenance, the security, and also manpower, because why? The maintenance, okay, will be carried out by the company, all right? You need a team of expertise to actually help you to manage the system, okay? And also when it comes to accessibility, okay, I will not say that it is restricted, but compared to cloud, all right, on-premise server, the accessibility will have a form of limitation compared to cloud. So if you see, everything is cloud-based nowadays. Everything is stored at the cloud. Okay, so what is this cloud server? So cloud-based server, it's where your system is actually hosted by a third party. Okay, so it is not in your company, but it is hosted by a third party. Okay, and this cloud server, you are able to access it via web browser. Okay, and then it is easily being managed, or it is managed by the third party. So you do not need to have an IT expert team just to manage your ERP system. Okay, because why? It is managed by the third party. And on top of that, okay, when it comes to cloud server, it is easily accessible. Okay, say for instance, I'm out on a business discussion, and then my production team need me to release bill of material. So with just my tablet or my phone or my laptop, I'm able to log into the system and then authorize or release the bill of material. Okay, but on premise, it has certain restrictions, certain limitation. Okay, on top of that, your companies may also need to consider the nature of business. Okay, for instance, am I dealing with manufacturing? Okay, or am I more on retail? Okay, is my what is the head count in my organization? Okay, and then of course, budget is always the big question. Do I have the budget? How much budget do I have when it comes to getting this ERP system? Okay, and lastly, to consider will this system or will this ERP system are able to be integrated with a third-party device? Okay, for example, if let's say I'm managing a restaurant, okay, is my system able to cater or integrate with my POS system? Okay, if I have my warehouse and I'm using barcoding, okay, or RFID, will my RFID and barcode be integrated with my ERP system? Okay, so this is the whole idea, okay, or the whole concept of procurement, purchasing, and ERP system. So yeah, this is all I have for today. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you so much, Dr. Alicia, for the overview of the supply chain processes and also giving us the big picture of the entire ecosystem and, more importantly, how to avoid the silo mentality that will help improve efficiencies and reduce business spend. So Dr. Alicia covered a little bit on ERP, and our next speaker will give us a greater insight into the implementations of ERP. I'd like to introduce John O, I think a name that is quite familiar to many of you. John is the CEO and co-founder of Supplycart. John will be presenting on the topic Procure to Pay, efficiencies of e-procurement integrated into ERP. So we are really getting in deeper into the tools available as well as case studies. So a quick background on John and Supplycart. Supplycart is Malaysia's premier e-procurement platform, which simplify the businesses, the processes, and also the way businesses spend through a cloud-based procurement solution. It is called ADAM, which stands for Analyze, Digitalize, Automate, and Manage. So Jonathan has been an entrepreneur for over 10 years. He has huge passion for helping businesses do better. And Jonathan saw a gap in SMEs, especially when it comes to technology adoption. And that has led to challenges in spend management as well as cash flow. And he's trying to address this with what he's doing at Supplycart. So he started a business and they have helped hundreds of companies, big and small. So without further ado, John, over to you.
Thank you, Cynthia. Good morning, everybody. It's great to be able to come together and just have this webinar and share with everybody. So it was a great sharing as well from Dr. Elijah. So I will be in terms of covering a bit more about specifically the procure to pay process and how e-procurement is part of that. And in terms of how ERP could then be integrated as well. So I'll be sharing my screen. So if you have any questions, please do put into the chat. Yeah, looking forward to connect with everybody. Yeah, so with the introduction from Cynthia, oops, sorry. So building on what Dr. Elijah has mentioned earlier. So basically, a P2P process starts when goods and services are required by the business and its users, and ends with payment. So the process is really important to keeping things in your business running smoothly, right? As business owners, even if you are in C-level, you will realize actually the benefits of P2P technology and ERP solutions are here to optimize the business's procurement processes, workflows within the company. In this time and age, it is essential for businesses now to think about how are they optimizing supply chain? How are they being more efficient in their business? And I guess it's really in Southeast Asia at this point in time, there are many areas that we are growing, and is in terms of COVID as well. It has really forced businesses to really think about, what am I doing right now? How is my organization running? Am I looking into different areas that is actually, a leaking bucket? Am I leaving money on the table, right? So coming to specifically to procurement, there are 7 key procure to pay processes. And I'm summarizing here in a way that the flow starts with, your users, your entities, your different business units or locations. They start off with the request and purchase requisition, right? And what happens after that? With companies, there are certain approval flows in place. Somebody needs to be signing it or somebody needs to be approving it, right? And then that leads to a proper governance where PO needs to be generated. Now, more and more companies now, especially even SMEs, they're moving to no PO, no pay. And the PO is such an important document for the business in terms of that supplier and buyer relationship being able to commerce and trade. And that's a formal documentation that needs to be sent to your suppliers, right? And after the goods are received, what happens then? There must be a process as well in terms of documentation to receive those documents, match those documents, and ultimately everybody wants to get paid. In those instances, the proper documents must be matched and ultimately leading to the document, to payment, right? So all these different functions involve a different variety of stakeholders, right? If you could see on the image on your right, you will be able to see that, these are just some of the steps that we have seen businesses implement, and some of the best practices that we have seen, right? From having a proper process from requisition all the way to payment, right? So it really depends on your business, how you have set up, right? But what we have seen here is, the e-procurement sort of allows you to automate, centralize like never before, while complying with your company policies and your industry regulations. So there are indeed challenges, that businesses will face implementing, e-procurement solutions, and I'll be covering a bit more on that. And from cloud to softwares, what can I implement? Now, this is an area that you might not be looking at right now. However, from what we have seen and working with so many businesses, we believe now is the right time to start thinking of getting our houses in order, right? In moving forward, right? So the efficient procurement process, workflows, and implementing the right cloud solutions can help your organization process, workflow, and your stakeholders, including your suppliers, to easily manage on a single digital platform or multiple best-of-breed integrated platforms into one, right? So moving forward, now, how does this benefit your organization, right? From the different stakeholders, you have requesters, you have approvers, your procurement team, and I think very important that procurement team nowadays, they shouldn't be seen as just a support team, but procurement team focuses a lot of strategy in terms of moving the company forward together with these stakeholders. So it shouldn't be just siloed by itself, right? All coming together from sales and marketing teams, working with procurement and finance team as well. So the different areas here that we see, from your requesters and approvers, having a P2P process, using an e-procurement solution in your organization gives you that control of that requisition, very efficient and being able to save your time for the company, no more paper and manual processes. And again, using paper and manual processes or even emails do present a problem where there's human error, and it's very inefficient to track who approved what, and where is this request typed which order, right? From a procurement team perspective, if you are in procurement, right, that visibility is important, right? How are you, able to easily consolidate all the different requests of your organization? We have seen procurement teams being the bottlenecks where thousands of requests comes in, thousands of employees request stuff to procurement, and without a proper system in place, they are spending a lot of time doing consolidation. So with a e-procurement solution, they're able to then have easy consolidations, right? And quick PO generation. You'd be surprised to know, even we have seen businesses where access, right, is limited and PO generation is still done on Excel or even manually inputted into an accounting system. So, why can't a approved request automatically generate a PO to be sent to the supplier? So all these little nitty-gritty things, right, does improve, the whole company's efficiency, and, in a way, giving you the advantage, right, that you have more time to do strategic stuff. I think that's what procurement, really needs to be looking into, right? And also ensuring that procurement is ensuring all compliances, and very much finance is also looking into that, right? And what finance comes is, are proper budgets being managed, is the proper suppliers being registered, and ultimately also the process and the system gives finance that visibility on who is getting paid, right? You wouldn't want to have a situation where, all it takes is one wrong payment to a supplier, and that's it, right? And it has already jeopardized that there's a gap in your organization if finance accidentally pays a wrong supplier. And all this really, does happen if there's not a digital end-to-end solution, So this is what, we see. Of course, there are challenges as well, in terms of implementing a P2P, right? Some of the challenges that we have seen is integrating the different systems. So you might say, I have an ERP, John, I have an accounting software, I have an HR software. How is that going to work? We're already using so many. So I really think that, and what Dr. Elijah has said as well, identifying the best of breeds and that integration capability is important. But there are challenges, definitely, integrating all these systems and processes. Now, another area of challenge as well that you will see in your organization implementing, it's really the lack of governance and compliance. All this can be in place. However, right, it all comes down to people as well. Are people complying with it, right? Are people following the policies in place, right? So it's really critical that the policies are able to keep maverick spending at bay, and really, if it's left unchecked, right, it can really cause serious damage to your business, working capital and cash flow. Another challenge we see also is management. Me, myself, being a management in my company as well, and if you are in management now, it really boils down to management in terms of their buy-in and their intent to drive this. It's a top-down approach where the management must want to see this. And a lot of times, of course, I understand management has so many things to think about, and procurement and the buying process could be the number 50th thing that management could be looking at. However, right, a lot of times it's seen as a non-critical to business when you talk about procurement, the process. So I think really it's also that mindset change, in terms of, management thinking about how can we invest, to improve this time cost efficiencies, how can we use technology now to help our business. Again, I think this is an area that a lot of teams or businesses overlooked. And to be honest, we have seen a number of clients as well, and they can tell us that they have not changed their process for the past 50 years. I mean, I nearly fell off the chair by what? You're still using the form that you have established 50 years ago, and a paper being a paper, you can write anything. I can draw a picture on the paper as well. So I think it's really a challenging task as well when there are so many stakeholders at management level. And the next thing here also, implementation, in terms of lack of adoption. You have a beautiful system. You have integrated the different ERP. You have integrated different procurement and everything, but nobody uses it. Why? Because it could be so difficult to use. I've heard this term, very rigid, not flexible. It's so old school. It looks like my Windows, first version, right? And users now being more demanding as well, right? So a lot of times also they are looking for that more. I want that B2C experience. Can I have an easy, why can't you make it like Lazada, right? That experience is so easy. So that adoption as well is important, right? And these are some of the challenges. So users want a very simple, intuitive experience in the business environment, and sometimes the systems out there, might not offer the business that, right? And finally, change management. I think a very big challenge that we see organizations going through, especially when they want to adopt, an ERP or e-procurement solution in their business. The change management is one of the toughest, right? Because people are just so used of doing the same thing. it is painful, but they've gotten so used to the pain, right? That it's very hard to change. So it really is a long process as well. Sometimes, and especially with larger organizations that are complex, and I think that's where then change management becomes a challenge with any new implementation, right? So I wanted to just sort of show you an example of how you bring best of breed and the different integrations together. As what Dr. Elijah was sharing, that ERP, right? And she's already shared what is the ERP about, right? So now here you look at it, that ERP, it's really where all the data maybe is stored. Your financial system could be the core in your ERPs, right? And because of certain limitations, potentially then, the process then can be integrated with different procurement solutions, right? So one, integrating point of data to push into an e-procurement solution that gives unlimited user licenses for your business. Two, the approval and PO process all can be done on an e-procurement platform, right? Then your supplier uploads the necessary stuff, your integration, you push into a closed PO, then can be pushed into an ERP, right? And then automatically creates a bill to make payment. And if you could see this, right, it's already like automated and it's have saved you, a lot of time, right? So this is really a typical process that we see. ERP system is built for finance departments and accounts. Often businesses will try to add on procurement models, but usually that's not enough. So in terms of your organization, you would see that ERP only access could be limited to certain organizations and not the whole organization. Hence, where a best of breed e-procurement solution comes in, right? So the common typical problem that we see, with user license limitations, and let's be honest that a company can't be paying for the whole organization's user licenses. So really, in terms of selecting who are the ones that have access to the ERP and potentially implementing a front unlimited user model for a procurement solution, PR to PO could be an alternative, and choose a best of breed, right? So your business users, what they're going through right now, could be going through a manual process, yes, causing inefficiencies, human errors, and time costs. They are sending paper emails, as I've shared earlier, right? Your line approvers, they are signing on papers and stuff, right? The different people now are merging the different requests, and creating POs differently. So really all this, is causing inefficiencies, right? So where we have seen here that it can work really, right, is thinking about how can you combine a seamless from a request all the way to a PO generation. And, in a way, with an unlimited user model, people then get to have the visibility. They get to see who has submitted approvals now on mobile, right? And digital approvers, they have audit logs, and then direct integrating into an ERP. Everything all is digitalized and seamless, right? So I really would say, when considering, in terms of hooking on a best of breed procure to pay into your ERP, think about how can I be inclusive from every user in your company, that whole automation, right? Think about that you design and user experience, right? And also what kind of technology, is it an on-prem technology? Is it cloud technology? And as what you have heard Dr. Elijah say, cloud technology is much easier, and a lot of companies are moving to cloud, right? So this is really just some of the differentiation between cloud and on-prem, right? You don't have to spend a lot of your infrastructure. You don't have to have physical servers now in your business. Every time you want to upgrade, the software upgrades by itself, like your iPhone automatically upgrades, right? So some of these cloud solutions out there, you must also determine whether it's a true cloud or fake cloud, right? So true cloud, it's really, everything what you're paying for is already on the cloud. All hosting, everything all is done, right? Whereas, legacy systems and a lot of businesses have that, it does have quite a number of costs tied to it, right? So I wanted to jump into ROI, and you must be thinking, it's really expensive, and what are the benefits? and I have so many things to look into, right? So some of the ROIs that we have seen, studies have shown, companies implementing a P2P solution have seen more than 200 to 300% ROI, right? Reducing purchasing costs by average of 8 to 12% a year, and it has already sort of delivered additional 2 to 3% of annual savings. And this was a study done by Forrester, and this is what they found. And the key areas that you would see, businesses would see if they start investing into ERP, and e-procurement solutions, right? They're able to see that annual spend optimization, right? It has given procurement teams that greater visibility of buying behavior, driving supply consolidation, broad spend under management, right? The next thing that you see now, that productivity gain across your organization, from your procurement productivity, end user productivity, management, stakeholders productivity, accounts payable productivity, all these adds up to time cost efficiencies that now you have saved this amount of time and cost that you can invest into so many other things, right? As well as system maintenance costs as well. By moving on the cloud, by upgrading to the cloud, companies have ditched, paper costs, require minimal invoice storage, logistic costs to store all this kind of stuff. IT departments have become, an important part in, sort of managing these expenses now much lower already, So these are some of the ROIs that we have seen. So with that, these are what we have seen, some of the companies that we have served from the different industries, forward-thinking companies in their industries, market leaders, and that they have started thinking about how do we then start digitalizing our whole procure-to-pay process. And they have seen significant reduction in manual processing and handling. They have seen significant cost reductions. And the most important thing, turnaround times, right? The turnaround time, that's something that took weeks from a paper and email and everything all, right, is now shortened to a matter of days. You can be where you are right now and, approving and viewing and looking through the logs of your company spend, what is going out, what is, all this kind of stuff. So with that, before you implement, things to consider before implementation, really have a clear objective. What is it? What is the purpose of your implementing, and what kind of tools and solutions are out there, right? Which areas you want to digitalize, all right? Think about that, right? The people as well, who are the ones involved in the transformation as well. Project sponsors, again, remember, change management is tough. So identifying the different people and not implementing too many things at one time, that will confuse everybody as well, right? Do you have processes and policies in place, right? And if you need to, then you can update those processes, right, to support change, or establish those, or work with the vendor to come, or consultants to do so, right? Your structure of implementation, who is that digital team, digital implementation team? Really is important to have that key owner, and again, I think management is most of the time the project sponsors, and your project leaders are most likely digital transformation leads, or your procurement team, or in finance as well, right? And who is spearheading this initiative? A few things that has covered by Dr. Elijah as well, from your budgets, what kind of budgets, a rule of thumb, and we see sometimes is that, if your yearly revenue, 1% of your yearly revenue is invested into such digital technology and technology of your business, right? Look at, again, cloud or on-premise. So those are the top that you manage your costs, right? User license, again, great that there are solutions out there that limit, and there are user licenses. However, is this applicable to your organization? Do you need more users? How many users actually is required? And again, do not think about saving costs on user license and then circumvent that by creating a manual process behind that. From the diagram I showed earlier, we have seen businesses where, I only have 5 user licenses. Sure, everybody else, please fill out the paper while we look nice with a digital solution at the back, but everybody else doesn't get it. So what's the point, right? And I think that's an important element to consider, right? So evaluate your transformation frequently, and look at solutions that can scale and grow with you. You don't want to be stuck with something that you have implemented, and then suddenly you realize can't use, or I'm forced to upgrade, or I have to pay a huge sum again to change and stuff like that. So having these kind of different considerations during implementation is important, right? So with that, thank you very much, everybody. And there's a lot to cover. I'm more than happy to just connect with everybody again, at a different time. So do add me on LinkedIn, looking forward to more sessions. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much, John. Yes, you can connect with John and also Dr. Elisha. We'll put up their emails at the end of the event. So thank you again, John. If I can summarize his presentation, I think what he's saying is that you don't have to implement everything at once. It is a process, and every step of the way there are tools and ways to do it so that you don't feel overwhelmed when embarking on your digital transformation process. So ladies and gentlemen, now we've done with the speakers. We would now like to hear from one of Supplycart's clients, Bloomthis, on how they have adopted their Supplycart software into their business and how it has changed the way they run their operations. Now, I'm not sure how many of you have heard of Bloomthis. They are an on-demand flower and gifts delivery platform. I've used them many, many times. A good one to keep in mind for birthdays and Valentine's Day, if you guys don't know about them yet. So now if the video is ready, Benjamin, can we run it? Yeah, okay, let's have a look.
Hi everyone, I'm Gideon, the CEO and co-founder of Bloomthis. And essentially Bloomthis is an e-commerce. We deliver handcrafted designer flowers, artisanal gifts, gourmet food, house plants, as gifts, and we do this on demand. We came to a point where we needed to address how we liaise with our suppliers, how we consolidate all our communications and orders to our suppliers. How do we manage them, as well as and analyze what we have been doing with our suppliers. And then we find that it is actually a tall order when a lot of these things are still manual in terms of invoices are in physical papers, the DOs are in physical DO papers, and so that whole process is actually very painful, and we knew that we definitely needed to, again, one step at a time, take one area at a time. And as a team grows, and as our product line grows, our material grows, we see that actually certain levels of approvals is essential, right? How decision making is done within the team, and how do we communicate this information to our vendors, suppliers, partners is crucial. So we then started looking out for a technical solution around digitizing this process, because we cannot continue on doing it manually. And naturally, of course, Supplycart invested a lot in building their solution, Adam, which fits perfectly into solving this part of our problem, I must say. Actually, literally taking away all the manual and all the physicality of keeping track of things, especially in procurement, and putting it into a solution, software that we can easily manage, easily track, and approval process can be done in customized to the needs of the company, and then the communication between us and our suppliers can be more transparent, and the records are clearer. So so that's when we said that we should start and try it out and give it a go. And I must say that it has it's really good, because Adam is a module that actually you can grow as the need arises. The team has been really great, because we work closely, and our team share some of the needs of in the real world, right? How we use the solution, and Supplycart actually listens to our feedback, and they have built certain functions and features that actually helps the needs that we require and I can see that actually the adoption of Adam becomes more and more within our team, and mentioned that as the team grow, there are many users as well, and the users can be cross-functional. It's not just a procurement team; it can be, sales team and marketing team, HR team, and every team in the company uses will have to procure something or request something one way or another, and the tool actually helps us to manage all this internally as well. So so I think it's been a great tool, and it's also evolving together with us, and it's getting more powerful. And so I think it's crucial for a startup, even startup company or a growth company to think about working with a partner, is to know whether are we able to continue that growth with the partner, and does the partner actually understand us, and can work together with us and build things that is relevant to our needs. And so I would say Adam and the Supplycart team definitely fits that criteria. In our journey so far, we learned that there is no better time to start the digitization journey. The earlier you start, the quicker actually results. You start to see results, and it's really the small results that will eventually compound into something meaningful. It's just, at least that's how we have experienced through our journey so far. And really, by digitizing our processes and enabling it with technology, we are able to better create moments of happiness for our customers. And I hope that this will also inspire everyone to take on the digitization journey together.
Right, thank you so much. That was Gideon from Bloomthis. I think if I can summarize what he's saying is that, here's what business owners and managers want. At the end of the day, they want to have greater transparency, greater automation to take away the mundane activities so that you have more time to focus on the important stuff. And that's why digitization journey is so important. So ladies and gentlemen, we will now move on to the Fireside Chat. And before that, we will be running a poll just to gauge how far advanced your organization is in the procurement process. I think the poll is up right now. One of the first question is, very curious to know how many of you are still using Google Sheets and Excel sheet in your organization? Are you using any cloud solutions in your business right now? Yes or no? The poll results are coming through. We will tabulate them and run them later on during the Q&A. And the second question is, what cloud-based solutions are you using? If you are using HR, payroll, accounting and finance, CRM, customer relationship management, procurement, ERP, which we have talked about a lot, as well as the last one is storage. So we're seeing quite a number of you guys are using cloud solutions in storage. Interesting. Okay, so we will reveal the poll answers, the full one, later in a little bit more. Do we want to run it now, or are we good? Should we end the poll? Okay, all right. We have ended the poll. So 86% of you say that you do use cloud solutions in your organizations. And the second question was what cloud-based solutions you're using. Most of you use cloud solutions in storage, 57%, followed by accounting and finance, 43%, HR and payroll, 29%. I'm surprised. I thought this would be a bit higher. And followed by ERP, procurement, and CRM, all scored at 14%. Now we will discuss the results in our Fireside Chat. And right now, I would like to actually, let me go to the slide here. Okay, so right now, we're moving on to the Fireside Chat. I would like to invite Ian. Okay, all right, let me just go back up. Okay, so yeah, Ian is Ian John. He's the country head of Simplify Consulting. So he will be joining us along with Dr. Elisha and John as well, who's back on the screen. So just a quick reminder to all of you participants that we will be taking questions from the audience. So please send us your questions on the chat box. Let us know who you want to direct the questions to, and we will get to that during the Q&A session after the Fireside Chat. So thank you so much. We have Alicia, Ian, and John back on the screen. So just to kick things off here, looking at the poll results earlier, we see that quite a large majority of our participants do use cloud solutions, 86 or 89%. Maybe I can start with a very basic question here. Does every organization need an ERP at this point in time? Because I think some of us still thinking, hey, if Google Sheets, Excel sheets still work at a very, very cost affordable rate, why do I need to go into cloud solutions or ERP? Maybe we can get Ian on it since you just joined us. What are your thoughts?
Thanks, Cynthia, for the great introduction. So ERP essentially, if all of you do not know, it's enterprise resource planning. So it's not just a finance and accounting software. It does more than that. So it's a business management system. So in the business that we are encountering today, resources can be reflected in many different forms, not just your cash flow, your capital, your investments, your revenue, but it can exist in different forms now in terms of utilization of headcounts, time, machinery, production output. You can look at efficiencies of your processes, turnaround time in terms of when your order is placed to the time the order is delivered, the end-to-end. Then you have procure to pay, which what Adam is all about. The system looks at supplier interaction. Then you have customer relationship management, managing your customers' transactions. So ERP covers all of these different areas. And more than that, you gain visibility into your important parameters or transactions in a single view in terms of good reporting, business intelligence. So there's a lot of data that is coming in, and if it's not captured, you will not be able to analyze the behavior of how your business is going. So there are very big organizations today that may be bleeding cash and may be not profitable, but they are succeeding in gaining market share. So this is also the play. So conventional business or traditional businesses may think it's all about profitability and revenue. As long as these two indicators are positive, your business is doing well and it's healthy. But in today's time, it's how you manage capital to gain customer value and how you gain greater market share. And perhaps the profitability and revenue can be a later parameter you look at. So we are in a time where everything is very exciting. Many businesses are being disrupted by technology. So ERP forms the core. So you even talk about machine learning, artificial intelligence, but you cannot do all these areas if you don't have the data and you don't have the speed of processing and accessing and analyzing this data. So things are evolving by the second. So if you don't have a system to adapt with, then you're gonna be challenged much. So that's what ERP is all about, is the anchor application to run all of this exciting analysis.
Well, thank you, Ian. I'd like to get to John because you raised a very interesting, I think a very pertinent point is that, you don't have to start the entire process all at once. You could kick things off with a little by little. Maybe let's go with that because we do have a range of participants here. Some who are already familiar, some are just starting out to use cloud solutions, ERP. So what are your thoughts surrounding that? When it comes to starting that journey, where do I start if I'm an organization like an SME?
Yeah, thanks for that, Cynthia. So there's no right time really. It's really then the business looking into their existing processes, and I think sometimes we need to take a step back and look at where is that area of greatest need. Where is the area of that's causing the most pain in our business? And sometimes being in management, so we might not know, but there are then instances where getting on the ground, speaking to our teams and to understand where are those gaps. Now, when is the right time, or what do I implement by identifying that main pain point? And how is it impacting my business? Is it causing my guys to be slow? Is it causing my guys to spend a lot of time on unnecessary non-strategic stuff? Right? Is it causing my team to then now having delays, long turnaround times, production is slow, and all this kind of stuff? Right? So in terms of what solution the business needs to implement right now, I think everybody here, our businesses could be at a different stage, and it's also relating to industries, right? So we have seen, like businesses with who are using Excel, they have a basic accounting. And then the next thing they say, you know what, we have a very big sales force out there, so we need to keep track of of what. Okay, hence then you might consider implementing a CRM, right? Or in our instances where the clients that we work with, we see them having very high activities in terms of requisition, approvals, processes, engaging hundreds, even thousands of suppliers. Now, without a procurement system, right, how are you going to do that, right? So, and if they are using paper, and I've seen instances where CEOs coming to me and telling me that, oh, you know what, John, the bottleneck is procurement and me. Every month I have to sign on paper 200 to 300 POs a month. And I'm like, what? Right. So that is a pain point you need to change. Another part I want to touch on also is sometimes do not get carried away with that, oh, I want that whole full-fledged thing. I want everything. The question is then, are you really going to use it? Right. If it's 80% is called, 80% of your problems is coming from this area, why not fix that? Do not be blinded by that, 20%, and I want to put a lot of resources on that 20% pain point. Right. Coming to ERP, I think ERP encompasses a full suite of, there's so many things that ERP can do. And I think having an ERP, the business is, of a certain scale, growth, and I think the organization then is growing, and there'll be complexities, right? From multiple billing entities, multi-currency, they could maybe having tenders, and all these kind of financial data and analytics, right? ERP is able to provide. So if the business requires that, then it's important for you to then implement an ERP. And I've seen particularly where companies who are implementing ERP, they are sort of above a certain size, and they're growing in revenue. They could be in multi-locations and even expanding to different countries. And I think some of the ERPs that we see out there as well, have that kind of advanced accounting financial functions, which a basic cloud accounting doesn't have, right? However, I'm not saying a basic accounting is not good. I think everybody, and even now in this time and age, everybody should have a minimum an accounting software, and I hope that it's not an on-prem, CD-ROM installed into a desktop. Right, it's already on the cloud. That's so important. But yeah, I think the last few things I want to say is really choosing that right solution, and just start with one first. If you have heard Gideon from Bloomthis say, start with one. Yeah.
All right, thank you, Ian. I think what was interesting also, if I would like to point out from the poll earlier, is that as I mentioned, that the highest when we asked what cloud solutions do our participants use, most of them said storage. I was wondering, Dr. Elisha, were you surprised by these results? And I guess also in a way it's great, because when you look at people who use ERP, CRM, and procurement cloud solutions, only 14%. So I think a lot of us here, the participants, do want to know more about that, because the usage is relatively low right now among our participants. So Dr. Elisha, if you can share with us your thoughts about the results, and how do you kickstart that journey, to add on more automation cloud solutions into your business process?
Thank you, Cynthia. I think based on the results, I'm actually quite surprised that majority of the companies, they actually emphasize on storage rather than the procurement or customer relationship management. Because to me, it's like, if you are like, in a typical organization, usually companies will emphasize on sales. So when it comes to sales, it will be more on sales and then a CRM. Okay, and in order to actually have a smoother or to have a higher customer satisfaction, so procurement will come into place, because why you have a smoother trend. The flow will be there, because as you're aware, when it comes to procurement, it is the very first process of a supply chain, of a typical supply chain. So without the material, I'm not able to produce the material. Without my finished goods, I'm not able to sell. But by looking at the results, a lot of companies are actually emphasizing, or they actually have this storage, which I personally think that it's a good move, because why? It somehow link back to sales as well. Because if let's say I'm in a sales team, I want to sell the product to my customer, I need to know how much product or finished goods I have in stock, so that I can actually have this ATP available to promise. So I think that's the reason why companies actually move towards storage rather than the areas of procurement or sales or customer relationship management. But honestly, I think that, if companies has already invested in storage, all right, they should somehow, look into areas like procurement or customer relationship management. Because why? Customer relationship is very important to me in a way. Okay, SRM and CRM is very important in my personal opinion. SRM and CRM is very important because why? In order to have a smooth, a purchasing or procurement journey, you need to have a relationship with your suppliers. So with a good relationship with your suppliers, you can somehow discuss or somehow bargain or negotiate in terms of your lead time. You can get your stock faster. Okay, and when it comes to customer relationship management, CRM, it's very important because they are the one that buy your product, and then in terms of having them to stay loyal to your brand, to your product, to your company. So CRM is important as well. Okay, so I think in order to somehow expand, okay, or to have a stronger supply chain, okay, to have a better process flow, it is good to actually explore areas that, like I've mentioned just now, cross-functional, to involve other areas or other function within that organization so that you can have a stronger form of supply chain, okay, rather than, I think John actually mentioned in his presentation just now, is like, because of certain limitation, I am just automating a certain process, but back end, I am still doing all this manual processing, which at the end of the day, it doesn't add value to the organization. And in fact, it will somehow, overburden the staff, the employees as well. Yeah.
All right. Thank you, Dr. Elisha. I think I would like to go back to Ian, because Ian is an ERP consultant. So looking at the results, a lot of people have cloud solutions in storage. So if I'm the business, I'm thinking like, hey, okay, I may consider ERP procurement cloud solutions. How do I start? How do I go about that journey?
Yeah, so it's a very interesting journey. So in adopting a software in general for companies and enterprise, it's like a marriage. So it's choosing the right partner. So you cannot simply just jump in, create a Facebook profile, create an Instagram profile, Twitter account, and you're good to go. I mean, although ERP can act like a Instagram because it's on the cloud, but it's more than that, because the marriage of an ERP software with the company affects the entire company. So it affects your staff, your executive, your management, your directors, your stakeholders, your investors, and perhaps the family of those staff as well, because they are contributing to the work and the time required. So choosing an anchor software like an ERP software will affect. So it's good to actually have a pre-assessment done and understand the value proposition on a business perspective. What are the benefits, advantages, return on investments, the savings, the cost that is required, stage by stage, from the point of requesting for a proposal to the time the deal is agreed, implementation cycle, how support is met, turnaround time of cases, how fast the tickets get responded, because all of this will affect the activities of the business. So to start simply is to do an assessment on your current capacity of the company. What is the current output in terms of productivity, and what are the areas you want to focus on improving? So there are many areas, but I suggest to scope it down to a few areas, then roll it out on a specific timeline, have a carefully developed blueprint, scope, then roll it out in a project. So first you cater for the pain points or areas that keeps you awake with the ERP solution. Then once that is covered, you look at wish lists on things you can further develop. So I would recommend a phase-by-phase approach covering the essential mandatory finance processes. Then you can take it up to the next level in terms of introducing projects and campaigns, cost centers, revenue mix. And you can go further by doing an expansion to other countries. So there are ERPs available in the market where you can already implement for different currencies, different languages, different countries, and adding more companies. So it's really a complex process. So really encourage you to look for the right partner, like how a marriage is. So very important. So don't jump in head first, but work as a team and involve everyone.
All right. I do have a question from one of our audience. So the question is really about cost. Are cloud solutions like ERP procurement systems expensive? And if there's a lot of cost involved, and you mentioned that, okay, we should like just ease into it, assess the pain points, and then find customizable solutions. But at the same time, I'm just thinking out loud here, would it be more makes more sense to get a full stack so that you can have like the whole seamless digital journey? So maybe we can get John back in to talk about your thoughts about cost, and is it just better to scale things up, or what do you recommend?
Yeah. I think really in terms of how you come about looking at costs, it's like I shared earlier that looking at the different areas in terms of where will this impact, and I think the hardest question every time is investing in a solution, investing in a cloud solution, and thinking like it's going to cost me so much, and a lot of times people can't see that immediate ROI, and having that patience to be able to like, I know what's going on now. These are all the pain points and problems, like what Ian is saying, scoping it out, understanding all this. And if you put a number to it, and we have seen hundreds of hours, thousands of hours saved, right? And that does translate to cost, right? So again, as I shared, how much you think that you should invest, and maybe then 1% of your yearly revenue in terms of putting it aside to invest in technology. I think that is a good gauge to start, right? So if I'm doing 10 million, 1% of that is set aside to then encompass all the different cloud solutions or the different tools out there. I think that's a good place to start, right? Also look in terms of if you're implementing a solution, that user license also is important, right? What is the cost? Be sure to understand from the partners what kind of cost, upfront cost, in implementation cost. Is there any hidden cost as well from a server perspective? There are times that people say they're cloud, but actually then they say, oh yeah, I'm cloud, but then you need to implement another server or something like that. So be sure to have that kind of transparency in terms of some of the hidden costs, right? And the kind of infrastructure that you might need to spend on as well, right? And like I said, I think the market, should be moving towards, encompassing how do I have more users be part of it? So some of the companies, would give modularized pricing, giving you unlimited users like ourselves, and I think those are important elements. If your part of the business requires this, at the front you need this kind of users to be part of it, then unlimited user license makes sense, right? Okay. So yeah.
Just a quick question back to you, John. When you talk about 1% of your revenue should be spent on digitalization, do you see that happening when you speak to business leaders, organization managers, and when they come to you, what are some of the conversations that takes place? What are their biggest challenges?
Right. I think our company is really looking to spending 1% of that on technology. I don't think so. And there are times also where it's not even budgeted sometimes, and sometimes when people want to implement and we are journeying with our clients and they say, oh, we have to now wait for our next budget meeting happening next year to put in this kind of budget, and then blah 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 blah. So I think this is an area that still companies are practicing, and some of you are doing that really great. I think there's a lot of room more for people to start thinking of setting aside some budget to do so. So I think the common things that come back to us every time, of course, we see very clear pain points, right? From user license limitations to a lot of impartial manual processes, people using forms, people signing or stuff, people using emails. I think there's a very big problem that we see. Communication again with the suppliers and all, again, it's all very manual or a traditional way, or too many channels, and there's a lot of noise. I think we see all these problems, and then when we progress that, yes, certain solutions then can solve it. Now comes down to cost, and sometimes people are not ready, and sometimes it's difficult. I understand change management is difficult, but really I think businesses really need to think forward thinking. If I want to be relevant in my industry, I want to have this competitive advantage, I need to invest. I think all comes down to is the company willing to invest a reasonable amount that is budgeted, affordable to their business, to see this see their business scale and grow to create this foundation to get their house in order. Yeah.
I think also there is a concern among business managers is that once you start that digitalization journey, you have to keep investing, every year, because it's so easy to fall back on the usual tried and tested method. But as you mentioned, it's about thinking forward, thinking ahead, and thinking about future ROIs, right? We do have another question about differences between cloud solutions and also on-site servers. I think, John, you mentioned a little bit about that. The question is regarding accessibility, security. What are the pros and cons? Maybe we can go to Dr. Elisha to take that one.
Right, thank you. So I think in terms of pros and cons of having on-premise and also cloud is that, like I said just now, in terms of accessibility, all right, so by having a cloud server, it will be more convenient because you can actually access it anywhere. Okay, as long as you have internet connection, I can log in using my phone, my tablet, my laptop, and I can run any form of authorization or approval or so or things like that. Okay, but when it comes to on-premise, it is actually installed in your working computers or working PC or desktop in your company itself. So when it comes to accessibility, just like, like I said, I'm out having, like, let's say business lunch or discussion with my client or with my suppliers, okay, I may not be able to approve it then. That the whole concept of on-premise and cloud is just like pen drive. You see, when you have a pen drive, all right, if you want to access any form of data, if you want to have access any form of information, you need to have a PC, you need to have a computer, all right, to plug in your pen drive to access the information. Whereas when it comes to cloud, it's like, you have your Google storage or you have your cloud storage. Okay, with my phone, I can just extract the information. I don't need my pen drive. I don't need to find my USB port to get the information. So that's the pros and cons. Okay, but of course, when it comes to cloud and also on-premise, all right, internet connection is very important. If you're using cloud, correct me if I'm wrong. All right, so it's like, if the place that I go do not have internet, but I don't think that is applicable because, phone, Wi-Fi, everybody have their their connection. Okay, so I can access it anywhere. Okay, but when it comes to cloud server, internet connection is very important. So if, let's say, I were to go on a trip that, I don't have any form of connection, then there may be a problem in connecting or, accessing the system. Yeah, and then in terms of maintenance as well, all right, so when it comes to on-premise, everything is handled in-house by your IT team. Okay, so it will be I would say more costly to have that team of expertise in your organization just to be on standby or just to solve the problems when I have any issues with the system. But if you're on cloud, all right, it is all handled by the third party. So you do not actually need to invest in this IT team. And in fact, you can use this fund or this budget to somehow improve on your core business, like, production, manufacturing, R&D, marketing, and things like that. Okay, and on top of that, I think John actually mentioned as well, and Ian actually mentioned that, if it is cloud server, okay, it updates automatically. Rather than, every time when there's a new update, in on-premise, I have to go through the whole installation, I have to go through the upgrading and everything on my own, which is very time consuming. Okay, compared to cloud, it is done automatically.
All right. Yeah. Now, can you have both? Because a lot of businesses already have legacy systems in place. So how would having cloud solutions like ERP impact their existing systems? Maybe Ian can take that.
Yeah, sure. That's a good question. So there's always a transition. So to implement an ERP specifically, the old finance and accounting software would have to be phased out. But there are solutions where you can operate together, because the old legacy system may be the server that they are dedicating for the old archive of data to be in. So some companies are required to keep like 6 years employee records or accounting records for the sake of compliance and regulation. So those can be stored in those archives. But then you also have to weigh whether those archives saved in your servers will be safe from corruption, from cybersecurity risks, from viruses. So many of you all have mentioned that you're using cloud-based software for storage, which I think everyone uses for email, for Google Drive, OneDrive. And of course, there are more established systems out there like AWS, Google Cloud, Huawei Cloud, Ali Cloud that you can use to archive those information, and you can transition into that. So it really depends on the company's strategy on what they want to do. So it can be a standalone where it's not connected to any system. So those can be archived there, the very important information. Then of course, ERP, we would recommend to use a fully cloud ERP. So as you transition into a cloud system, there's also change management in terms of culture from what you're used to accessing on a virtual private network on server in your office. Now you have to log in using a web-based browser. So there could be some inconveniences or discomfort because it's different. But I think it's just a matter of getting used to. So back in the day, we were using checks, and checks was somewhat being discouraged. So even the use of checks, you will have to pay 50 cents. And now I think the cost is more than that, a few ringgits. And people do not trust to transact via your mobile phone. But now it seems to be a norm. It's much easier. So moving from an on-premise archive-based system to cloud will also take time. But we would recommend everything to be on the cloud because the maintenance and level of security that these major public cloud companies provide is beyond your imagination. So you don't hear of public cloud providers being hacked, but you hear of companies being hacked in terms of ransomware. So I think before hackers hack to this public cloud, they will already know about their intrusion, and their firewalls is a lot of layers. And I don't think any company would have the level of investment to build such an infrastructure. And this company invests in the billions. So for a company to do that, it's nearly impossible. So highly recommend to move to cloud. Don't archive in your on-premise servers.
Cloud is the future. Now I have a question. Thanks, Ian. So we have a question from Julian, actually. It is to John. His question is, does the cloud software improve over time? John.
Right. Good question. So looking at it and building on what Ian has shared, I guess the advantage of a cloud software is that over time it does improve. In different areas. So allow me to just touch on in terms of the efficiency and optimization. So from a cloud software perspective, having a software that is hosted on the cloud, the owner or the principal of the software, they are always constantly developing and optimizing it. So from a speed perspective, loading, security, and all this, all it's in place, right? Compared to a software that's installed right in your on-prem, a heavy cost could be incurred just to optimize it. Whereas cloud, they're always constantly optimizing it. That's one. The other thing, I would say that how the cloud software improves over time, and I mentioned earlier that it's a version control, and I think looking at it, software, sometimes, if you see, I Windows 95, right, all these versions are all just one version and you're stuck with that and forever. And the next time if I want to change that, I have to install something else again. Now, with cloud software, and something like what Supplycart we do as well, we constantly upgrade the versions. So at any one point in time, you are using the latest versions, right? It's like, and I remember the example you give. Everybody here, if you guys have an iPhone, and right, it's straight away, they will probably say, it's updated. You have to just, and I think in our case, so it's automatically updated. You don't have to press the update button, right? Because then you should be getting the latest versions. So I think that's really the advantage of cloud softwares out there, that you constantly have that latest version, and you won't reach to a point. And I know that there are some businesses where they implemented a software already, and they've been using it for the past 10 years, and now they're still stuck with it because they can't upgrade, or it's gonna cost them a leg and arm to upgrade. And then they say, oh, sorry, we don't support this version anymore. We need you to move to that new version. Again, it really depends on the company, but I would say this time and age, we're all moving more to the cloud side, and much more advantage of a cloud software, from ERP to a procurement software to be done on the cloud. Gives you that flexibility, mobility. I'm not bogged down by VPNs. I've seen some businesses where they have to access their servers. So when they're outside of the company, they're on the laptop, they have to wait for an hour, maybe just for it to load and just to get to access to their server. So I think, that's really of the past. We're moving forward in the future. Yeah.
Now, speaking of moving forward, I think the reason why people are joining us here today, because they are thinking about, implementing some of the things that we have talked about today, ERP, cloud solutions. But I think if one of the concerns, if anything, when it comes to implementing something new is disruption to your day-to-day operations. So how big of a impact will it be to the overall processes? How major change management will be during an implementation like ERP? Maybe Ian can take that. I mean, you consult about ERP, so what are some of the case studies you have witnessed? If you can share with us.
Yeah, sure. So in transitioning to actually go live with the new ERP, it will take a significant amount of time. So depending on the scope you establish at the beginning, the blueprint, which is the project plan and what needs to be rolled out in terms of modules. So then we will decide how long the implementation project will take place. So once scoping is done, when the requirement analysis is done, then the blueprint will be established and agreed among parties. And there will also be a dedicated project team in place to organize this entire interaction of implementing the ERP, from training to data migration, to actually understanding the scope. When it comes to implementing the module, who are the people involved? So all of this will be set in a very clear schedule. And there will also be a committee to address any conflicts or any issues that is disrupting the business. So there will also be a weekly update and daily interactions with the project team and the necessary executives. So it could take somewhere between 6 months to 9 months for a standard finance implementation rollout. Some can take over a year. So I think the relationship that the company has with the partner is also very crucial. So the partner implementing the ERP will also be part of the organization, in a sense that some processes will need to be put on hold, some can run, and depending on the phase, each of these can be coordinated really well. So don't regard implementing an ERP as simply downloading a software from your Play Store or App Store and you're up and running, because it requires much, much more, because now you're changing and migrating to a new system. And the second point is also the fact that we need stakeholders and management to buy in to the project. So leadership to lead the change, to actually sponsor and have executive support into the milestones, the activities, and get them involved in the communication and set the expectations right. Because if you implement a software and no one is using it, it's going to be a waste. So you will need to also share in the proper kickoff. There could be a party being held to understand the expectations and what are the things that will be much more convenient and what advantages the organization is going to get and how teams will be more effective. So it really takes away all the manual work, administrative. So some of the processes can be automated. So you have RPA, robotics process automation. Then you have the ability to not always key in data, where you have a manual form and every day executive needs to key in. You also eliminate the work of every time you have to call the finance department to get the latest figures. Finance department will say, hold on, I need to check with the warehouse. I need to check with the production manager to get a coordinated representation of what the business is. So when you actually do that, the time you get the report is only 2 weeks, and you will need a brand new report. So there is a 2 weeks turnaround perhaps. So implementation of ERP will help all of that to recognize the benefits. And like a marriage, there is an event manager, there's a bride and bridegroom that decides what gets done, and there's the parents that actually decides what is required, the guest list. So it's similar to an ERP implementation. So I think that's a very good example. Yeah.
Thank you for that marriage advice, Ian. So I think I want to stay on the topic of change management, because it is always a tough one when you implement change. It is as much hardware as it is people, meaning you need the buy-in of employees to accept and then adopt these changes that you are trying to implement. Dr. Elisha, maybe a word of advice, what is your thinking around that, especially when it comes to organizations adapting ERP cloud solutions? It is a daunting change. So what is your advice to leaders or business managers?
Okay, so in terms of change management, I actually agree with Ian that it is actually it is a major change to the organization, because it's implementing an ERP is not just about installing a new software or system in your organization. It actually changes the major part of the processes. Like, say for example, manually before implementing ERP system. Okay, so what I do in terms of my stock is that every day I will have my receiving. So what I do is I leave it until the end of the day, then only I update my stock list. Okay, so that manual purchase, that is manual processing. But if I were to implement ERP system, okay, when the product arrives, I have to update my stock in the system. I would say straight away or after it is being approved. Because if I don't update the stock into the system, my production team will not be able to release the bill of material. So with that, production is not able to run. All right. So when it comes to this whole implementation of ERP and this whole change management, I think it is important for the leaders or the companies or the management team to actually speak to the employees that they're actually running or using the system, and to prepare them, what are the changes that they are going to face. Okay, and also to, in a way, to communicate or to support and train the employees to be ready to accept the system. So it is very important for them to know that, how the system or how this automation will actually help their everyday processes, rather than it being an extra work or an extra task for them to to do on a daily basis. So it's like when it comes to this whole ERP implementation or this change management, all right, so ERP actually is not just about technology or process, it's about the people as well. So you need to get all of them to be on the same path or to be on the same objective or share the same goal, so that the whole implementation process will be easier, smoother, and also a success.
Okay. I'd like to get to John for your thoughts about engaging people within the company to get on board to change. Just a final reminder to our participants that we will be ending this shortly, this webinar. So if you do have any questions, please send them through. We have a couple of minutes left. So John, yes, speak about that, engaging people based on your experience working with companies. How have they succeeded? How have some failed? If you have those stories you can share with us.
Okay. Yeah, good question in terms of change management, especially when it involves the whole organization and its people. So I really think sometimes, the succeed part then is when it's top down and it's implemented. The top management, the project sponsors, the project users have heard the pain points that the users are going through, and when they implement it, then it becomes a very refreshing, like, oh, finally it's been solved. And I think users will appreciate that, especially because nobody likes to do that mundane task, right? And there's a lot of times that we see conflict between certain departments, especially with procurement and finance, sales and marketing teams. They will always have this communication, stuff. Like, why are you not improving it fast enough? Why am I PO? By right, the event is yesterday. All this kind of stuff, right? So I think. When it's pain enough and the users are thinking that, hey, this really, I need to change, I can change this and I can move forward. So we see that, the system being easy also is important. So if I shared earlier in my slides, it must be user-friendly as well, right? So the want to change is there, but if I'm changing and suddenly you give me like a rigid, not flexible, complex system, I don't understand this, right? Like, then again, it's counterproductive, then I spend so much time trying to learn how to do it, right? Hence then I say that user experience is so important. Thinking about how do we user experience, like for us, we make sure we have all the guides online, we have training videos, we have a live chat that you can always chat with us if you have problems. So all this adds up to that user experience. I guess some negative impact that we see, users not wanting to change. One, we have heard this line many times, John, if I use your software, right, you're going to put me out of the job. I've heard that so many times, and then that's what happens when then we have a barrier. People then start thinking, no, I don't want to change, I don't want to use this because my boss is going to put me out of the job. He's replacing me. And the common answer we tell them to assure them is like, we're not replacing you. We want to work with you to see how we can improve and help you so that you can do more, use your time for more strategic stuff. Don't you want that? Or you love doing the mundane stuff, right? So I think that is where we see that resistance sometimes. and not wanting to change is also a problem for us when the top wants to change, but the bottom says, I'm already happy doing this. So it's really trying to get them to understand and journey with them to understand why. Is it a fear? Do they have a fear of don't want to change? So I think that's our experience, from working with the different users.
John, can you share with us Supplycart's ADAM software, ADM at ADAM? What kind of industries or sectors do you think are most suited? If you can share with us in terms of size, if people are thinking about, hey, maybe this could be for me, but I'm not too sure. What would you say?
Right. Okay. I guess, where we work with our clients very closely, if they have very high activities of requisition, your approval process are very manual, a PO creation is important, no PO, no pay. So this type of companies that have this kind of very high activities, would be suitable. Some of our top industries that we work with, of course, we're industry agnostic. It really depends on the intention of the business wanting to change. And if we are able to fit into the different processes, again, what's the priorities? Like what Ian shared, scoping that priorities and what's the pain point. But for us, education is a key industry for us. Retail services, health and wellness, e-commerce, if you have heard Gideon from Bloomthis Sharing, logistics, and we and property, real estate, construction, some of these industries, to name a few, where we have seen our software ADAM really stand up, and being an unlimited user model, it has allowed the companies really to achieve the ROI they want to. So yeah.
Well, thank you for that, John. So we just have about 5 minutes left. I want to go around the table to get your final thoughts and maybe key takeaways that participants should have as they leave this webinar. Let's start with Ian.
Yeah, so just want to share the digital transformation, moving to the cloud, is not just about software, hardware, IT, technology, and all the cool application. It's about engagement, how you engage resource in a company. So resource can always be deemed as just a monetary aspect, but resource in this age involves people, involves process, involves product. So resource, the perspective towards resource needs to be expanded, providing value to the market, sustainability, and overall ROI in terms of growth, expansion, opportunities, managing risk. So ERP covers all these areas because you get to see the data that's measuring and analyzing all these parameters. And we have to also understand that parameters has a correlation. So imagine 10 different parameters. So the third and fourth parameter may affect the 9th and 10th, and 9 and 10 parameter grouped as one may affect parameter 1 and 3. So it's really a complex web. So the relationship on managing this behavior needs to be covered by a system, and hence the data captured is what you can then analyze with. So ERP is the core of it. So look beyond this monetary resource, but resource as a whole, behavior, outcomes, and also motivations, incentives, what drives the workforce, general mood, general morale, collaboration, all that are form of resource. And it's managed.
Thank you, Ian. Dr. Elisha?
Right. So I think at the end of the day, I think for all form of businesses, regardless of what industry you're in, automation is inevitable. It's unavoidable. You have to automate, you have to change. Just like, our government, even they have this IR 4.0, Industry Revolution 4.0. So I think automation, you cannot avoid automation and integration. And when it comes to, automating your system or simplify your system, you have to do it to actually increase your productivity and efficiency. So, when it comes to all this form of change, automation, should I get it now? Should I get it later? It's very difficult to find the best time to get it. And then, this principle or this ideology of, maybe I should just wait and see who get it first and see how it works. And, maybe I should wait and see if it's successful or not. All this waiting for the right time, honestly, to me, there's no right time. So if you feel that, if my organization, my company, my firm, it's ready to change and I want a better result, I want to increase my efficiency and productivity, you should actually go into that change already, rather than, waiting to see how it works, waiting to see, what is the results and things like that. Yeah, so you do it now, or you just don't do it at all. Yeah, and then you'll be left out.
Not an option, not do it at all.
Yes.
Automation is inevitable.
Yeah.
You have to get on board. Just how do you want to do it? So, John, final words from you.
Ditch paper, ditch emails, ditch the signature manual forms and stuff like that. And ditch on-premise. Move to the cloud. It's 2022, guys. So it's really a time for change. And I think it's so important now for businesses to remain competitive. Do not get bogged down by the day-to-day and let that sort of eat you alive inside. And that all this actually does really adds up. If you compound it, the amount of time that you have saved, by just making that little change, taking that leap, and do not have that fear that it's expensive. There are really, really a lot of solutions out there. Again, don't get too overwhelmed, but then also, there are a lot of solutions. I speak to a lot of industry leaders as well, and they're more than happy to share. Because change is inevitable. And what Dr. Elijah is saying, I do know as well that some clients that we serve, they observe their suppliers and say, look, if they have not digitalized, they're not really we can't have them as a vendor. And that is coming. More and more companies are looking even in their supply chain that, hey, if you're not having any digitalized tools or you're not digitalized, right, that shows you're not efficient. If you're not efficient, you can't serve me. So sorry, thank you very much. I don't want to say in a very, bad way, nothing wrong if you're running a business in this way, but just think about, hey, prepare for the future. And it's a lot of benefits, that outweighs the disadvantages. So yeah, start now, start.
And I find it quite interesting because if you're still using the old ways, if the pandemic haven't forced you to change, I don't know what will, really, because this pandemic has really highlighted the need to accelerate, not just adopt, but accelerate towards digitalization. So thank you so much, Dr. Elisha, Ian, John. We have come to the end of the webinar, and we hope you have enjoyed the sessions and found them useful. So just a quick note before you go, our speakers are very keen to engage with you. So if you would like to explore to get into e-procurement or cloud solutions, our speakers will offer a free consultation. That's right, free consultation. I'm not forcing them or putting it up to it. They really would like to speak to you, and their details, as you see shown on this slide. Just drop them an email, any questions, and Ian, John, and Dr. Elisha will be very happy to speak with you. Okay. All right, ladies and gentlemen, I hope you've had a great time, and I hope you have a great day ahead. Once again, thank you so much for joining us. My name is Cynthia, and we hope to see you again in our next webinar. Bye, guys.